Pastor Doug here from Crossroads. It's great to be with you. I hope that today's message will draw you closer to Jesus.
It is really nice to be with you all this morning, even with a little bit of snow and snowdrift along the roads. Great job for braving all of that and being out here this morning. If we haven't met yet, as Doug said, I'm Bryan, and I help to give leadership to an area of the Brethren of Christ Church known as the Atlantic Conference. And so it stretches kind of from the Harrisburg River east. If we had churches in New England, technically they would be the Atlantic Conference as well, but thus far we don't have any churches in that area. Although I married a girl from New England, so we're trying to do some things about that. Well, thanks for your part in serving as a part of what Jesus is doing in this area, and through your partnership, even stretching beyond that. I don't know if you realize, but outside of the many, many ways you're impacting this community, impacting friends and neighbors for Jesus, your impact goes much farther than that. Through our partnership together, doing the ministry we have in common. Do you know that you've helped to plant numbers of churches over the last number of years? Some very close to here, one in Lancaster City, another one in Allentown, more recently in Lebanon City, and also into New Jersey, Mount Holly, New Jersey. This morning there's a new church gathering that's just a few months old. You all are a part of doing so. Kenbrook Camp, which isn't too far down the road. At one point, especially during the pandemic, struggling, making some of those difficult decisions that Doug was just talking about. And today, thriving in all ways, impacting youth and children especially, but adults as well. You helped with them to be back in vital ministry. You've helped send global workers all over the world, most recently, a new couple into an area into the Middle East, which we hear about a whole lot in the news, and you've helped to send a new family there recently. You're a significant part of all of these ministries we do together, so I just want to say thank you. Thanks. It's good to be family together. That's at least how it feels to me as I come here. I don't know many of you, but yet I feel like we're family. And so it's exciting to be here this morning. So I got a question for you as we start. How is your sleep these days? Oh, all right. We've got a great down there. Now, I realize when I start talking about sleep and I'm about to talk for like 45, 50 minutes like that, that's a dangerous sort of thing. So not so much thinking about sleep in the next 10 to 15 minutes, but whenever you take that prolonged period of sleep, if you don't work during the days, maybe you work at night, maybe it's a different period of time, but how's your sleep? Sleeping soundly? We got one great, but sleeping soundly these days? Well, if not, there could be some reasons that impact that, like maybe there's recently a new baby that joined your family, or there's been a medical procedure that you've had recently and it's making sleep difficult. Well, early in my marriage, my wife, whose name is Carrie, her sleep was thrown off just a bit. When you first get married, you learn things about each other, and we did, like any couple would. But she learned some surprising things about me that were a little bit beyond what she was expecting. You see, through a lot of my life, especially as a kid, I sleep-talked and sleep-walked. Apparently, my parents will tell me stories of places they found me, including like trying to jiggle the front door to get out the front door in the middle of the night. So I kept them on their toes, and I don't know if it was the new environment of having somebody next to me or what, but that kind of reintroduced some of these patterns into my sleep. And so early on, she said it'd be the middle of the night and I'd start talking, and she's thinking I'm talking to her, but the longer it went, the more it made no sense, and she's thinking, what is going on? And at the beginning, this was cute. Everything's cute at the beginning, right? And in fact, she said she tried to carry on some conversations with me and see if she could get certain information out of me, that sort of thing. But the longer this went and the more it interrupted her sleep, we got kind of that less cute phase. Some might describe it as annoying phase. And this happened pretty quickly, I should tell you. This wasn't like just yesterday we hit the not so cute phase. So one evening, middle of the night, we're in this less cute phase. And she woke up to found me at the end of our bed on my hands and knees, grabbing around at the covers. And she said, "What are you doing?" And I said, "There's a mouse in our bed." And she said, "What?" I said, "There's a mouse in our bed." Now remember, we're at the more annoying phase. It's the middle of the night. And so the way she used to speak to me more sweetly wasn't as quite this time. And I must have been coming to, because the more you interact when you're asleep, talking, walking, doing whatever, the more you can remember it. And I still remember some of this conversation, or I certainly did the next morning. And she said, "There's not a mouse in our bed. Go back to sleep." And I thought, yes, there is. I'm trying to catch it. I'm grabbing at the covers. And the more annoyed she was with me, I thought, fine. You want to sleep with a mouse in your bed? No problem. I'm going to go back to sleep, and I'm going to show you. So that's what I did. I went back to sleep and laid down. She got what she deserved for being so rude to me. She could sleep with that mouse. Sleep gets interrupted for different reasons. Sometimes, at least for me, another way that sleep can be impacted has to do with what's going on during the daytime hours or the waking hours for me, and how much stress might be involved in that. Ever those times where your head hits the pillow and rather than everything shutting down, your mind just starts going more and more? Mind starts racing and thinking about this and that, and I toss and turn, and minutes turn into hours sometimes. Other nights, maybe I fall asleep, no problem. Boom, I'm out, and something wakes me up in the middle of the night, and then that pattern starts at 3 or 4 in the morning, and I'm thinking, no, not right now. I need this sleep, but the cycle just starts going again. Maybe it's all the things I need to do. I'm a list person, so I start ticking through, oh yeah, I've got to do this and this and this. Other occasions, it's me trying to work out problems or solve problems on God's behalf. Have you ever done that? Well, if I can just think through this, I can take care of it on God's behalf, and He'll have less to do, right? There's other things in the world He needs to deal with. So if I just think of this from every angle, if I just take care of this myself, then God won't need to. And when I'm in that mode, obsessing could even be a word that could be used, and sleep tends to lose out. So back to that initial question. How's your sleep these days? There's a verse in the Psalms that I have known for a while, but it's becoming more and more important to me as the years go by, and I was reading in the Psalms a little bit ago, and I stumbled upon it again, and it came back to the forefront of my attention. In fact, in some ways, I feel like it's becoming one of my favorites at this stage of life. We're going to spend a little time in the first 2 verses of Psalm 127. Psalm 127. Here's what they say, verses 1 and 2. "Unless the Lord builds the house, the builders labor in vain. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat. For He grants sleep to those He loves." It's especially that last part of verse number 2. God grants sleep to those He loves. This psalm is one of a number of psalms that would have been sung on a pilgrimage or a journey to Jerusalem. It speaks to daily life, particularly work and family. It's interesting that first part of verse 1. It says, "Unless the Lord builds a house." That can actually refer to constructing a dwelling where we might live, or actually a creation of a family, or both. It has both references. Interesting, because those making this journey often would do so with their families. So as you can imagine, they're singing these words as they take this trip, and their families are there with them, surrounding them, unless the Lord builds a house. And the subject matter and phrases early on in this psalm are some of just the basics of life. Where we live, whether that's personally or within a community. How we're provided for, and what we need on a daily basis. All of those actions, typically things that we're a part of, we might do in some way. Building, watching, waking up, staying up, producing, accumulating. And there's nothing wrong with any of them. In fact, we would likely view all of these areas as good things, things we should be about, whether it's specifically, as this passage says, or in more a broad sense. The point of this passage isn't to belittle any of those activities. The key point, in fact, in these early verses about this daily life is that God is the determining factor in what is actually occurring. God is the determining factor in what is actually occurring. Unless the Lord builds the house, unless the Lord watches, ours is a vain effort. It focuses on the vanity of us as people when we believe we're the driving force in what's actually taking place. It's not us, and whether we acknowledge it or not, it's God. These areas of work and family certainly have the aspect of human endeavor. We're involved, but the human action is not actually what determines what will take place. But so many times I don't live that way. I confuse the fact that I'm involved and that I'm desired to be so with who is ultimately responsible, who's truly doing the work. If God is not in it with us, our lives, our families, whatever we believe we're building, it's all a vain effort. If we don't understand the role of God in our ultimate protection, provision, it's an adventure in missing the point. It's vain. And the way that word vain is used there in this passage is the opposite of another very common word in their language that we translate peace. Vain is the opposite of peace in these verses. And peace is not just the lack of conflict, but it's wholeness, the fullness of God's presence with us. And so when we come to verse 2, it says, "In vain you rise early and stay up late. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat." That word toiling portrays a picture of frantic, ceaseless involvement in work. Frantic. Running around, ceaseless all the time. And again, this is not to belittle hard work, but it's painting this picture of anxiety and ceaseless work where we believe it all depends on us. And the writer of the psalm says that's vanity or futility. Then this wonderful and beautiful phrase, or at least I find it to be so, "For he grants sleep to those he loves." Now, just to be clear, this isn't trying to communicate whether you and I are ultimately loved by God. Rough night last night? God apparently doesn't love me. No, it's to illuminate this deeper point about ultimate responsibility. It points to sleep, although very necessary, as an exercise of trust. One of the great joys for me in this stage of life is being a grandparent. I highly recommend it, and whether for you that happens biologically or maybe it can happen in some other ways where you can be a grandparent type of figure, boy, does it bring a lot of joy in my life. And after our girls, we have 3 of them, were grown, and out of that young stage, I didn't have too much occasion anyhow to hold sleeping babies. But recently, entering into this grandparent stage, I have done so a lot more. And so sometimes I'll get a picture of a Snapchat of a little baby in my daughter's arms, or just recently over Christmas break, I got to hold Nora as she slept. And I just looked down at those big old cheeks and those eyes closed and her resting in my arms, and I snapped that picture. That picture of a baby sleeping in somebody's arms. Think about what it takes for that little one to do so. It usually means his, or in this case, her, all of her present needs are cared for. She's filled. Whatever the other things are that she's feeling have been provided for. And as we know, none of this at this stage of the game is of her own doing. She is utterly dependent. Because all of those needs, whatever is satisfied in this moment, give it another couple hours. They're not going to be satisfied any longer. And yet she can do nothing about that the next time, and the next time, and the next time, utterly dependent. And yet in this moment, she is peacefully and soundly asleep. It's a significant picture of ongoing dependence, and trust for any little child of that age to sleep in that way. God grants sleep to those he loves. You know, another reality that this points to is not only the trust that it takes to sleep in that way, but also it points to the reality that even as we sleep, God is still working on our behalf as we do. One of the previous Psalms in this same section, one of the same ones that would have been sung on that journey, affirms that fact about God. Psalm 121, verses 1 through 4. Listen to these. I lift my eyes up to the mountains. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord, the maker of heaven and earth. He will not let your foot slip. He who watches over you will not slumber. Indeed, he who watches over Israel will neither slumber nor sleep. While our work may and must cease, God's will not. Work should be an exercise of trust, not of anxiety or arrogance. One of the ways we embody that is by stopping it and acknowledging that God is actually the decisive factor in all of this, trusting him in the fact that as we stop, he will still be working on our behalf, building, watching, providing. In all of these ways, the point is God is the one who is ultimately making the difference. Unless the Lord builds a house, the builders labor in vain. God is the builder. He puts it all together. He holds it all together. Unless the Lord watches over the city, the guards stand watch in vain. God is our ultimate protector. In vain you rise early and stay up late, toiling for food to eat. God is the one who truly provides. In each case, it's an exercise of trust. And you know, that's something I'm not always so good at. But for each of us on this journey with Jesus, if we desire to continue in journey with him, we have to grow in this area if we desire to follow Jesus. So how do we do so? How do we grow in trust? A few thoughts. To increase in trust, start with God. And what I mean by that is focus on who God is. You see, there's a reason we're putting our trust in God. It isn't random. It's because of who God is, his character. So as we want to increase our trust, learn more. Be reminded about who God is. Those verses in Psalm 121 that we read give us a few wonderful characteristics which focus in on who he is. God is the maker of heaven and earth. From the telescope to the microscope and everywhere in between, God is the creator of all things. And surely if he created everything, including us, he understands how it all works. He understands what everything needs, including us. His wisdom and understanding is far beyond ours. And apparently, even though he's that vast, he's not distant, removed from us. That Psalms that he watches over us. This is both collective and personal care. God is attentive. He's our helper. He cares, provides, protects. He's so immense that he can create everything, yet so close and personal that he can watch over you and me. And that's what's just drawn from those couple verses. We've sung about it this morning, but we're told in other spots of the Bible that God is love. And we learn that his love is directed at us as people. So as I desire to trust more and more, depend more and more, I've got to focus on God. I've got to start with the object of that trust and then allow trust to grow within me, within us. So focus on God. Next, get specific. I mean, we're to trust God with everything, right? So God, I trust you with everything. There we go. And you know what? Sometimes when I trust God with everything, I kind of miss out. It glosses over everything, and I kind of miss out on the details. At times, at least in my life, I've got to be specific. With what do you or I need to trust God this morning? Not just everything, but specifically. Start with that one thing. That area or person that is on your mind this morning or was on your mind when you walked through these doors, and maybe even has popped back into your mind a few times as you've been trying to focus and trying to concentrate, but that person or that situation just keeps coming back. Or maybe the one that you and I have obsessed about all week long. The one that's maybe even kept you awake when we should have been sleeping. What is that for you and for me? In the last weeks, as I've talked to a few others, I've had a greater awareness that in my own life, I've been trying to hold a number of things that have been weighing me down. And I've been feeling like I'm the one that's holding them. I'm standing there, arms outstretched, and right here in both hands, there's just a ton of things that are weighing me down, one side or the other. And I was recently at a prayer gathering where the person who was leading at the beginning of that gathering asked us all to do something practical that was really, really helpful to me in those moments, especially with that picture in my mind. And I thought, maybe as an act of getting specific, we could do that together this morning. Ready to get a little crazy here at Crossroads this morning, huh? All right, so we're not going to pray, but I'm going to ask you to close your eyes. I know that's usually the only time we would do that. But so close your eyes for just a moment and take your hands on your lap and ball them up into a fist. Squeeze your fingers tight. Now imagine you're holding on to whatever areas come to your mind. That person, that area you've been obsessing over, the person who's on your mind over and over again. Now, as an act of trust, ask God to hold that specific thing for you. Trust him. And then as you do, as you're asking him, release your hands. Uncurl your fingers. And as you feel that release and God taking that, lean in, trusting God with whatever that was. All right, open your eyes. Thanks for doing that with me. You see, we need to focus on God. We need to get specific, and we need to commit daily. My experience is for trust to increase, it has to be a daily decision. This usually isn't a once and done type of thing. I mean, throughout the scriptures, that theme and that pattern is echoed over and over again, especially in God's area, in this area of provision, which the first psalm we talked about was writing about provision. In the stories of the Old Testament, the Israelite people who God was working with when they're in the desert and when they don't know where they're going to turn for food, God provides in a miraculous way. But how does he do so? He does so daily. He provides this thing called manna that they can eat, but the instructions are clear. It's going to happen daily. You can only gather enough for today. Many years later, when Jesus is teaching his close friends and followers how to pray, when it comes to the section of that prayer that's about provision, He echoes that scene in the desert, and what does he pray? He prays for daily bread. For trust to increase, we need to daily recommit to doing so. Because potentially, that area that was on your mind that you just released to God, you might wake up tomorrow morning and realize, I've got to do that again. I need to do that again. And even in this moment, maybe we're brimming with confidence. We know that we are loved. We know that God is close, that He cares about us. And then tomorrow we might need to reaffirm those very same things again. Each and every day, in little and big ways, recommit our trust of God and in God. And day by day, as we look back on His faithfulness and trustworthiness, it will grow trust in us. Focus on God. Be specific. Commit daily. So back to that initial question. How's your sleep? Is there anything that's keeping you up at night? Is there something you're trying to solve on God's behalf so He doesn't have as much work to do? Are you carrying a burden that is not yours to carry? God grants sleep to those He loves. So children of God, those He immensely loves, rest, sleep. Lay back into His arms as a young child. He cares, provides, protects, and is the only one who is worthy of this type of trust. So do so. Trust, acknowledge our dependence, and rest easy. Let's pray together. Jesus, I am so grateful for those words because I need them. But I don't just need sleep. Ultimately, what I need is you. So this morning, I desire to recommit my trust in you. Recommit that I will look to you as the one who provides, protects, and cares for everything that is necessary in my life. So this morning, whether in big or small ways, may we look to you. May you be the one in which we place our trust. And may we open up our hands and release whatever we're holding on to into your more than capable hands. I pray that in Jesus' name. Amen.
Thanks again for listening. Any step you take towards Jesus is a step in the right direction. You can find out more about us at crbic.org. That's crbic.org.